She turns her phone alarms off. Phone alarms off at home. The screen stays blank and still near my hand. I wait for the next sound. Friday lobby, coats and dogs and neighbors waiting on rides. We always split the commute. I had the keys in my hand. She waved them off, stepped closer than usual. New 6 a.m. class, she said. She reached into her tote and palmed a silver gym key fob I'd never seen. Since when? I said. Today only, she said, sliding it into her pocket like it lived there. The doorman's eyes flicked to me, then back to the sidewalk. A couple from 4 checked the street and pretended not to hear. I let the keys hang a beat, then put them back in my jacket. She took the car without looking up. I called a rideshare with my thumb. No sigh, no scene. She adjusted the rear view and merged into the morning. Phone pinged. Our 7:30 breakfast reminder rolled by in gray mist. We don't skip that. No new event in the shared calendar. Another beat I didn't fill. She texted me send anything urgent by noon. I typed nothing. I watched the doors breathe open and shut, watched her taillights join the traffic. Doorman cleared his throat like he wanted to say something and didn't. The rideshare pulled up. I stepped in, checked the gym's app out of habit. The class list wanted a member login we don't use. The silver fob in her pocket said member. Today only didn't match the hardware. Dinner's still on tonight, I sent to the group. 3 yes came back. Her name didn't. I set a silent note, check the schedule later. Then I let the car take me to work and let the morning set its own pace. The table was loud enough to cover small mistakes. 2 couples, a coworker of hers, Lena at the end. I took the chair with my back to the bar. She set her phone down face up, then turned it face down when it lit. The silver gym fob slid out of her pocket with it and parked by her water. She stood twice to take calls outside, hand on the fob, thumb tapping it like a coin. When she came back the second time, she said her new trainer wants weekdays only, early slots. I say, thought Fridays were off. She says, he made an exception. Lena leaned in without being asked. Monday circuits are brutal, she said, you'll love him. She smiled at me the way people do when they think they're smoothing things. The server dropped plates. Someone asked about travel. I said work had me local. She said the new routine had her wiped. The fob caught the candlelight like it belonged there. A small metal thing, too polished for all the noise it made in my head. I moved my water so the fob was in my reach. I didn't touch it. She watched my hand stop short, and then she laughed at a joke that wasn't funny. Power tilted her way on sound alone. The table followed her cue. I say, we still on for brunch? She says, if I'm not in recovery. Lena said he pushes recovery days hard. Monday, Wednesday, Friday. She did the math out loud by accident. The coworker blinked at her. The couple across from us watched me like I was supposed to win something. I let the pause stay where it landed. The server asked about dessert. I handed my card over before anyone reached for their pockets. Small control. Unnecessary, but clean. She said I didn't have to. I said I already did. Her phone buzzed face down and kept buzzing. She didn't flip it. Her hand found my knee under the table and pressed once, a staged anchor. I didn't move. She pulled back first. At the bar behind me, a game went to commercial. The room dipped. I say, trainer's name? She says, Dan? No, don't worry, not your Dan. She laughed again too quick, then looked at Lena to backfill. Lena said he was new in town, runs a private list, hard to get in. She didn't meet my eyes. I watched her reach for the fob as the server returned the card. She pinched it, then placed it back down, closer to me this time. A tell or a dare. Either way, she registered the space between what she said and what she could prove. Check came signed. I confirmed brunch for noon to the group text. Thumbs up stacked. She didn't reply. She leaned on the back of my chair to take one more call outside, voice too bright. He needs weekdays only, she said to the air, and walked past the hostess with the smile she keeps for strangers. The coworker asked if everything was fine. I said we're adjusting schedules. Lena said changes are good, pinned it like a positive. She looked relieved I wasn't pushing. When my wife returned, she put the fob in the center of her palm and showed it like a party trick. Guest pass, she said, temporary. She closed her hand before anyone could read it. The same hand went to my shoulder as if to thank me for dinner. I stood, nudged her chair in, and let the contact slide off. We said our goodnights by the door. The doorman at the restaurant held it open like he'd seen this 100 times. Outside, she said we should hit the rooftop tomorrow for Sam's birthday. I said I'd swing by. She said try not to make it a thing. I said I'm easy. She walked toward a rideshare with Lena at her side, whispering fast. I watched the fob disappear into her jacket again. I sent a simple "see you on the roof" to the thread and set a quiet alarm. The night gave me nothing I needed, so I took it anyway and went home. The roof was half-lit and easy. Music low, people leaning into the wind. Sam waved me over. I bumped shoulders, handed him a card from my pocket, held a soda. She was by the stairwell with Lena, back to the crowd, the silver fob flashing when she tucked her hair. Our gym hands out blue rubber tags. Hers was metal, unmarked. I drifted toward the stairs under the patio heater. The concrete kept voices close. Lena said keep the fob on you, he counts minutes. My wife said it's fine, he's busy tonight. Lena said still, don't give him openings. The fob clicked against her ring as she passed it from one pocket to the other. She didn't carry a gym bag. Heels, not trainers. I stepped into their sight line. I said I heard that. She straightened, a half step back, then pitched herself forward into the noise. She said he's paranoid. She said it like a toast. Heads turned and then turned again. A couple smirks landed and stayed. Someone near the bar said married life, and let it hang. I kept my hand on the can, the aluminum cold and simple. I didn't fill the pause for her. She watched for a reaction I didn't give. Lena moved a little in front of her, like a screen. The fob vanished to the inside pocket of her jacket, zipper up halfway, the chain still visible at the seam. I said I'll check the gym schedule then. She said do it. Her voice ran a notch over the track. The group took its cue and went back to their stories. Sam slid between us with a plate of cake, said we all good, and didn't wait for the answer. Lena laughed at something behind me that wasn't funny. I walked to the rail and watched the next rideshare crawl up the block. I didn't look at her. I sipped steady. She moved to the high top by the gift bags and told a news story without me in it. Her phone face up, screen dim, do not disturb still on from earlier. She said she was up at 6 all week to anyone who asked. The time stamp on our shared calendar said otherwise. I let that sit where it sat. Dan's name lit on my phone from a team chat about open runs. The gym had posted weekend changes last month. I hadn't checked this week. I typed a quick "what's the earliest desk open tomorrow" and left it unsent. No need to crowd the air. A breeze clipped the napkins off the table. I caught one, slid it under a stack, and set my soda down on it. Efficient hands calm people more than words. Lena brushed past me on her way to the door, a quiet "excuse me," then a lower "you good?" I said I'm set. She nodded like I'd confirmed her story and rejoined the circle. My wife watched that nod and pretended not to. I told Sam happy birthday again and tapped out early. On the elevator, I set a 5:20 alarm and added a note, verify roster, check fob issues. The car card was still in her bag, so I ordered a ride and kept my phone dark. I didn't text her. At the curb, the wind took the music and blurred it. I'd be standing at the gym desk when it unlocked. The doors slid at 6. Saturday crowd pressed in. I took a spot by the desk. Dan in a staff polo scanned badges, glanced up, nodded once. He said morning, then checked the sheet. He said, no 6 a.m. yesterday. All Friday morning classes were cancelled. Front desk repeated it to the line. A few groans rolled off the rubber floor. Someone muttered about maintenance. The speaker crackled with a reminder, circuits run Monday only. I kept my hands in my pockets and let the line swallow that. Dan flipped a small tray, tapped a silver tag stamped guest. The shine matched the one she pocketed in the lobby. I said, recognize this. He read a screen. He said, not registered to her. He slid the tray back like it mattered to the next person more than me. On the cork board, a handwritten note, Monday circuits are brutal, bring water. The exact phrasing Lena had used over dinner. It sat there like it had always been there. I didn't explain anything to Dan. I asked for a towel, took one, stood aside and watched the counter clear. He asked if everything was fine. I said set. He nodded, moved on to a guy arguing about guest limits. I took a photo of the guest tag from waist height and sent one line to her. Brunch at noon still. The message stayed gray. I locked the screen and held it flat in my palm until the urge to check passed. A woman at the back asked if they'd refund yesterday. The desk said they already had. That did the rest of the talking for me. I folded the towel, dropped it in the bin unread. Dan lifted a ball from behind the counter, spun it, and set it down. He said, "See you at practice?" I said, "I'll be there." He looked like he wanted to add something about the fob, didn't, and called next. I walked out past the glass and let the automatic door close on its own timing. Outside, the air cut clean. I ordered ice on my phone, added charcoal, pinged my cousin for the gate code, and kept noon on the calendar. Cousins were already on the lawn when I pulled in with ice and charcoal. Kids chased a soccer ball between folding chairs. My aunt waved at the cooler like it was late. I took the tongs, set the coals, got the lid working. Heat came up steady. She arrived 20 minutes after that with Lena in step. They stood at the edge and let people come to them. Her phone sat face down on a plate case damp from her hand. Lena took the chair between us without asking. She said they'd hit a farmer's market and lost track. My cousin raised a brow at me and kept passing chips. I flipped burgers, lined hot dogs to the cooler side. When she drifted close for water, I kept my voice level. I say, "Saturday's open now." She put the cup down and didn't drink. She says I'm wiped. Lena tilted in, quick smile, said early routines catch up, like she'd been using mine. Someone behind her asked if the briquettes were ready. I nodded and let the pause sit where it landed. She laughed too loud at a joke she'd normally skip. Kept one hand over her phone like wind might take it. When I reached for the salt, she moved her elbow back half an inch and didn't meet my eyes. Lena answered before she did when my cousin asked if they were staying late. She said, "We've got a full Monday," and glanced at me like that detail would float past everything else. I said, "Plates are up." The line formed, and I served without commentary. A silver glint would have told me something. Nothing on her key ring swung when she picked up a bun. The fob wasn't with her here, or she'd buried it. I let that thought pass and kept the grill clean. People ate. The kids came back for seconds. She and Lena nested into a corner of the bench where I couldn't drift without making it a choice. She said she was crashing after this. I said I'd take care of cleanup. A cousin patted my shoulder and didn't add words. We left separately. I stopped home ahead of her to drop the cooler. The key hook by the door was empty. Her house keys were on the tray. The silver gym fob was gone from where she'd hung it last week. I touched the hook and let it sway. She came in quiet, slipped past the hall without asking about the ice. In the bedroom she took the inside edge and stayed there, body turned out, alarms off. No watch charging. The space in the middle went cold air and blanket. I pulled fresh sheets for the guest room. Opened the window a notch. Set a towel on the chair. My phone buzzed with a late game invite from Dan. I say I'm in. He sent time and a quart, nothing extra. Lena posted a photo from the barbecue to the group and left it at that. I set my shoes by the door and left the dining table cleared for morning. Noon didn't move. I wasn't moving it. Sunday brunch. Her circle stretched along a long table, sunglasses on inside jokes. She waved me to the seat across, not beside. Menus came, waters clinked. She kept her phone face up, screen bright, waiting. Before the coffee landed she said I track her. She scrolled to calendar pings, held the screen up like a badge. She said it's control? A murmur moved down the table. One of the guys sucked his teeth and looked at me like he expected noise. I kept my voice level. I said those are shared reminders. I slid my own phone across and tapped the focus summary. D&D ran 12 hours. No alerts sent. Quiet log empty. Nobody breathed for a second. Silver flashed under her tote when she dug for lip balm. The fob slid out, nicked the chair leg, and spun to a stop by my shoe. Lena leaned forward fast. Monday's circuits are brutal, she said to nobody in particular. Bent to retrieve her napkin, came up with the fob palmed. Her nails clicked it under her plate. She smiled at me like she was smoothing things. Her eyes stayed on my hands. The server set down plates. She talked louder over him. She said you ping me while I'm asleep? I said D&D was on, you said it. The server froze, then kept moving. Someone at the far end laughed at nothing. Timing shifted. No one reached for bread. Dan passed by behind the host stand on his way out, saw me, gave a nod, didn't slow. Two of her friends tracked him, then looked back at us with new math on their faces. Lena filled the gap. She said he always needs proof. I let the silence sit. I didn't look at Lena. I picked up the fob from under her plate and placed it on her napkin, clean and centered. Silver, same notch. No key ring, just the tag. No one at our table touched it. She didn't either. Her jaw set, but her mouth kept moving. She said you checked the gym, didn't you? I said I checked what I can see. She waited for a scene that didn't come. I asked the server for the check. He brought it to me without being told. I scanned, paid, and kept my card in my pocket. She said you're making this weird? I said brunch at noon didn't move. She blinked at that. Small, but it landed. I opened my calendar and booked a week away while the table watched the fob like it might speak. I didn't announce anything. I picked dates, a small bag icon lit. Hotels confirm. Simple clicks. She caught the motion. She said dramatic? I said logistics stay the same. A couple at the end traded seats to get closer to the daylight. The group's smiles thinned. Lena finally reached, covered the fob with her hand, slid it back to my side like a dare, then back to hers when no one reacted. Contradiction sat in the open with the silver. I pushed my chair in slowly. I said I'll see you tomorrow. She stared, expecting another round. I gave her nothing extra. The table sensed it, and adjusted their voices down. Outside, I ordered a car and sent a short note to myself. Reset starts Monday. The ride pulled up fast. I let the pause stay where it landed and stepped off the curb. Monday curb. Neighbors with dogs, doorman on a stool, traffic soft. I set a small bag in the rideshare trunk and closed it with a flat palm. She came down fast with a coffee and a smile for the sidewalk. I held out my spare house key on a ring. No silver fob. She flipped the ring once, looked for weight that wasn't there, checked her face, then looked at me. I said I'm stepping out a week. She said dramatic. A couple of leashes went slack while people pretended not to listen. I kept my tone even. Lock code stays the same. Utilities are on auto. Groceries deliver Thursday. She nodded like it was nothing, but her thumb kept tracing the empty place where the fob would hang. She said I don't need the gym tag anymore. Her eyes did a second pass over the ring anyway. I opened the group chat we share with the usuals. I wrote taking space this week, logistics unchanged, ping me for pickups. Dan replied fast with practice times, added open court Wednesday 7. I answered I'll make Wednesday. Lena's name floated at the top, typing bubble, then nothing. Contradiction walked around us on a leash and sat by her foot. She shifted closer than she usually does at the curb. She said we can talk tonight if you calm down. I watched a rideshare slide in behind mine, checked the plate, let the angle breathe. I said my calendar's shared. She tilted her chin toward the doorman and said we're fine, loud enough for him to nod. I let the nod stand. I forwarded the bills to her email, while she pretended to scroll something fun. She laughed once to the air, no sound in her eyes. I muted our thread. The car idled. She asked, do you want the car today? I said keep it. She reached into her pocket like the fob might be there after all, came up with only nails and a receipt. She put the ring into her bag, zipper slow, buying seconds that didn't change anything. Dan pinged again with the rec center address and a thumbs up. I tapped it and watched the map open. She said text me when you land, like I was catching a flight. I said I'll send times. She waited for more. I gave her the doors shut and a simple wave to the neighbors. The driver checked the mirror. I nodded once. Wednesday was set. The rec center was loud with shoes and whistles. I signed in, nodded to the front desk kid, and walked past the flyer board. A news sheet went up as I passed. Notice: guest fobs flagged for misuse. Photo of a brushed silver oval tag, same shape as the one that used to sit on our hook. A couple guys in line pointed at it. Low laughs, a name or two under a breath. I didn't slow. She waited on the bleachers, hands on her knees, dressed like she meant to blend with the wall. My phone buzzed. Practice times reminder. Another buzz, Lena's thumbs up, then the line below it. Lena left the chat. I let the screen go dark and set the bag down. She said let's fix this. I tied my shoes. I said after the run. Dan rolled a ball into my foot and pointed to the far hoop. A few teammates watched the bleachers, then me. She stayed seated, then stood, then sat back down. The front desk kid held up the notice again for the other side of the cork, thumb on the picture. Silver oval. The room picked at it until it stuck. She moved closer, end of the bleacher, enough for quiet. She said I'll drop the classes? I bounced the ball once. I said schedule's yours? Her phone lit up face down, a banner that only got halfway across the glass. Still on for 6? She slid a hand over it like she could put the message back where it came from. Behavior you do when you expect questions. I didn't give any. Dan said we running or you two need the court. The guys grinned at him and looked at me for the answer. I stood, set my feet, and started a simple warm-up. Lay up line. No rush, no pause. Bodies fell in behind me. She stayed where she was, eyes on the shoes, then on the notice, back to me. She said, I can explain? The gym swallowed it. Whistle. Ball hit the backboard, then the next one, then mine. I kept count in my head and watched my hands do what they always do. Control is a drill. You repeat it until it holds under noise. She waited for another line. I didn't offer one. Dan cut through and tapped my shoulder twice, short signal. He drifted to the wing and hit 2 in a row, then flicked his eyes toward the desk. Another cluster around the notice, a couple phones up for pictures. Someone said, that's the one I told you about. I let the words die before they got to me. She said, I'll return the fob. The word return sat wrong. You don't return something that isn't yours. The contradiction didn't need me to point at it. I jogged to the corner and called out numbers. 2 up. 3 stays. We moved. The rhythm settled. She stayed on the bench and rubbed her thumb along an empty keyring, a circle worn into the leather, nothing hanging there. She looked down at her toes like there might be an answer on the rubber floor. A kid ran by holding a guest tag and his mom stopped him like it mattered more today than last week. My phone buzzed in my bag. I didn't check it. If it was her, it could wait. If it was Bill's or Time's, it would still be there by the break. I wasn't hiding and I wasn't hunting. I was using the time I said I would. At the next stop I walked to the baseline for water. She met me halfway, just enough for her voice to carry to me and not the whole court. She said, I'll clear it all up. No more 6 a.m. No more whatever this is. I said, take care of your side. Logistics stay the same. She opened her mouth, then closed it, and looked past me at the guys stacking into a 4-on-4. Dan bounced a pass into my hands without looking. The whistle went again. She stepped back to the bleachers and folded herself small. A couple friends from her circle came in late, saw her, paused, then kept moving toward the far end like there was nothing to join. The flyer on the corkboard curled at the corners. I turned, set my stance, and called ball. Power sat where I left it, on the floor, in the pace, in the space I'd made. I kept my distance.